Hi, everybody. This is Dena Gassner. I'm so happy to have you here today. I am a Caucasian woman with white hair, and I'm wearing a black shirt today. I am a social work PhD candidate at Adelphi University on Long Island. And this is my third time trying to record this, so I hope it works. I'm very excited to be here today because, generally speaking, I wouldn't think that AUCD would accept a proposal as a learning tool for their participants. But I believe because I've engaged in the process of using elements of community participatory research to the best of my ability, they found that interesting. And so we're going to be talking about that today. So I'm going to begin by introducing just my dissertation topic, but then I'm going to talk on the last slide about how I've incorporated the community in my research so that you can see some ideas about how you might be able to do it. I'm not going to go into great detail about my subject matter because I don't think that's going to be the primary point of this, although I'll introduce the constructs to you and the concepts so that it makes sense to you. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and I will show those slides to you so that you can participate with me. So today I'm going to talk about my dissertation. It's on understanding the costs of administrative burden in accessing Social Security disability. To be more explicit, I'm going to be looking only at the application process and what problems or barriers that people might come across as they go through that initial application process. I'm using the sensitizing construct, which is just a fancy way of saying a narrowing of the possibilities of things I could look at by using the concept of administrative burden. And administrative burden is a politically created tool that's projected as necessary for fiscal management and responsibility. But it results in a lot of delays for consumers. It can lead to accessibility barriers, and it can really create some long-term harm in regard to how constituents experience their processes within these systems they're navigating. And that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking exclusively at the experiences of applying for Social Security, but I'm also looking at it for one narrow population, and we'll look at that. So primarily, the construct will allow me to focus on three key elements referred to by Hurd and Monahan as costs to administrative burden. And the costs are experienced when they're trying to figure out how systems work, where to apply, and how to access them. That is called a learning cost. Then there are compliance costs, which are the costs that are financial, that create hardship for people when they try to, say, acquire a formal clinical diagnosis to be eligible for services. Maybe they have transportation costs or car repairs. Maybe they have childcare expenses they have to endure as they're trying to get these things. Maybe they have to pay doctors and mental health providers fees to get access to them so that they can create evidentiary documents or documents to prove their disability. All of those are compliance costs. And then the final set of costs are psychological costs, and they usually present in the form of stigma, ableism, shame, and trauma. And those are the emotional experiences people endure as they try to get through these systems. The narrow population I referred to is autistic women, and there's an asterisk after autistic women on my slide because I'm defining women for my study as people who were assigned female at birth, even if they no longer identify as female, people who currently identify as female. And those people are the ones I'm looking at because women have more challenges in living with autism and they have poorer outcomes. Specifically, I'm looking at people over the age of 30 They were determined to be called the Lost Generation by Lay and Baron Cohen in 2015, because these are people for whom there was no diagnosis available when they were children, or they were given a partial diagnosis like anxiety, but the global condition, developmental condition we know as autism, was not described in such a way that they could be identified. They are also over 30, more likely to be applying without support. I'm really hoping to get a very raw experience of what it's like for one individual to be sitting alone in their bedroom, trying to get through this system. I will be encouraging people to invest in being part of the study if their parents help them and they're not professionals. But if they've used an advocate or a social worker or some other systems navigation consultant, I'll be denying them access to the study because that's not what I'm really looking for. And the reason, again, that I've chosen women is, as I said, they do get poorer outcomes in regard to employment, poor outcomes in terms of having secondary or more, excuse me, more conditions that co-occur or coexist with their autism. And they're likely to have a lot of intersectional identities. And Hurd and Lay describe the implications of that as being distributive. And what they really mean by that is the more layers of identity that you hold, for example, if you're a Black transgender woman, the more likely that your challenges with administrative burden are going to be amplified or intensified in some way. So that's the study as a cross-section. But what I really want to focus on is what Fletcher Watson refers to as inclusiveness. And by that, they say that inclusiveness is adapting the research environment, methodology, and dissemination to consider disabled people. And so these are the ways that my dissertation is really trying to be inclusive. First and foremost, my positionality is that as an autistic researcher, I was diagnosed with autism at 40. I am part of the lost generation. I'm currently in my mid-60s, and I have been both a Social Security consumer for myself, and I'm a representative payee on behalf of my adult son who's autistic. So I bring my lived experiences in to inform, caution against biasing, but inform this research. I'm inviting a group of autistic people who won't be participating in the study to review all of my materials for accuracy, for readability, for accessibility. I am going to be hiring an autistic professional plain language expert to make sure that all my materials are usable in regard to language and language processing. I am going to be using an autistic graphic designer for the materials design, for any images that I use, first of all, to promote employment in the autism community, but also to have them bring their lived experience to the process of making sure my materials are effective. I have created a tool called the Thinking Guide. And it's just a tool that people can use to help them prepare for the interview. Research has shown, Benavides, Nicolaitis, other people have revealed that when autistic people participate in the research process, if the materials are not accessible, or even if they are, just the spontaneous demand to respond to something can be very overwhelming, and it can result in poorer outcomes in terms of the research. People will abbreviate their responses, or they may skip a question just because it overwhelms them. So the point of the Thinking Guide is to create the interview questions in a booklet format that they will get through the mail, that they can opt in or opt out of using to help them anticipate the questions that are going to be posed to them. Their version of the interview questions in the Thinking Guide does not include the prompts. I have a second document that has my prompts in it, but it will allow them to prepare in whatever way they feel best suited for them. So they can make bullet points, they can draw pictures, they can list some dates, they can tell a story, whatever will help them feel more prepared and more confident coming in the interview. And I'm hoping that that benefits the research by producing a richer output. And then lastly, I'm going to be using member checking, which is when I take the materials that I've learned, I go back to individual members. I may even ask them if I can use part of what they're presenting because they've said it so articulately, or they've said it in such a way that's very moving to help inform the research and see that I got it accurate and that I got it correct to do best justice for them. Another social justice element that I'm adding to this is I'm frenetically applying for grants because I want to reasonably and fairly compensate all of these participants, as well as all of the staff people that I'm going to be bringing on board in consultative statuses. I think it's fair that autistic lived experiences be valued and compensated appropriately. I'm very excited about this research. I'm looking forward to coming back to AUCD and presenting my outcomes, hopefully. And I hope you continue to enjoy the conference. Thanks very much for attending my poster.